Now, our IFORS President, Grazia Speranza, will begin the webinar. Grazia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mary, for organizing and introducing the webinar. So, first of all, let me welcome all of you to this new event of the series of the IFORS Global Webinars. The webinar today is entitled Gender Diversity in the World, Initiatives and Issues in the OR Community. And I will host this event together with Luciana from Brazil, Suniti from Nepal, Claudia from Italy, and Carla from the US. Just a few words to introduce the main elements of the organization of IFORS. And all the member societies are organized in 4 regional groupings. North America, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. At the moment, we are working to make the African community grow in terms of member societies to have also a new grouping for the African societies. This is just to remind all of you that we will have at the end of August the triennial conference that was originally planned to take place in Seoul in presence and will be held in a virtual mode. And I will invite all of you to attend this conference, which will be really a great event. This is the administrative committee of IFORS, and here I would like especially to draw your attention on the 4 hosts of today, together with me, Rosiane, Suniti, Stefan could not be here with us today, and Claudia Chetti from Italy is representing the Euro grouping today, and Carla. And Rosiane, Suniti, Claudia, and Carla will introduce our 4 speakers. And the 4 speakers come from the 4 regions of IFORS, ALIO, EPORS, Euro, and NORAM. This is the 6th webinar, and we had already 5 webinars dedicated to the 4 regions that we have at the moment, plus 1 webinar dedicated to IFORS, to the OR in Africa, in the hope that they will soon become a new grouping for IFORS. Now, I will briefly introduce the topic of gender diversity in the world with a short presentation, and then we will move to the presentations of our speakers. To understand the situation of the gender diversity in the world today, we have to go back in time and to remember that women went through a long path to be where they are today, and that the path is not really ended. It has still to continue, because we are not in a situation where gender equality has been reached. And here I just mention some information about one of the very important steps for gender equality in history, concerning the right to vote. And the US were the first country that granted women the right to vote in 1920, and other countries followed. So after the right to vote, many other rights were granted to women, and we can say that in most countries in the world, not in all, but in most countries in the world, women have equal legal rights, which is really a very important success for gender equality, and maybe for some is considered the final step, while the goal of today is also to share with all of you the fact that we are not yet there. So we do have equal legal rights, but this is not sufficient to guarantee equality and equity. It is not sufficient because hurdles, obstacles, barriers are still there on the path of women. And these hurdles, in a way, are more difficult to fight because they're not as visible. Fighting for the right to vote is very clear. It has been certainly very difficult. I mean, the fight for the women who at the end succeeded in granting this right to all women, but at least it was clear what we had to fight for, while today the situation is more less visible, more subtle. And now one may say, well, you know, girls are not as good as boys. And it's not true. It's not true because if we look at the statistics, there are many around. I have picked up one from the Italian situation, but there are many others for Italy and for other countries in the world. And these statistics show that the performance of girls in education from the early stages to up to the university education, the performance of girls is better, not only in terms of grade, but also in terms of regularity and in terms of top performance. The percentage of cum laude is higher for girls. And this is true in all areas, from medicine to humanities to engineering to math. So the problem is not there, is not in school. Now girls go to school. They were not allowed for many years to go to university, and now they can. And the problem starts after. Because after girls, it is more difficult for girls to find a job. It takes more time for them to find a job. The salary is lower. And also the satisfaction of that girls have from the job they obtain is lower. So they get worse jobs in a way. And so we see that there is a problem because girls are good at school, but then they immediately after meet problems, and the problems continue for their life. And especially in leadership positions, we find still nowadays, in most cases, men, and for women, it is much more difficult to get into leadership positions. So we see symptoms, we observe the symptoms, we have to dig deeper to understand the causes of this problem. And we can start back to the very beginning of life, of our lives, to the wives of our children and to the future generations. And girls are pretty, are cute, are angels, all very nice things, but not very, how to say, not very good as preconditions for a successful career, while boys are heroes. And so the starting point is already very different, and somehow it shapes the minds of the girls and of the boys. And the messages that we receive, that men receive, and women receive are different from books, from newspapers, from TV. Everywhere we see that men are successful, have wonderful careers, they are scientists, cooks, whatever, leaders. While for women, we see still often messages of this kind. Maybe less, certainly less than in the past, but still too many. And here I would like to remind all of us how important our partner is for us. Of course, the woman is important as a partner for a man, but possibly the man is more important as a partner for a woman. And here I showed the case of Pierre and Marie Curie, very famous. And they were a wonderful couple, and we all know that they won the Nobel Prize together. And maybe not all know that the Nobel Prize was offered to Pierre only, and he was the one knowing that Marie had contributed to the results they had achieved as much as he had. So he wanted to share the Nobel Prize with her. And this is what happened. A situation very different from the one of Albert and Mileva Einstein, because Mileva was a wonderful young researcher. She was the first girl accepted at the Polytechnic of Zurich, and she was a wonderful, brilliant young student and young researcher. They worked together, but the papers they worked on together were signed by Albert only. Please, Christine. And Albert became a famous scientist, and she was left alone with two kids. One with problems, and the situation is that although they started with the same kind of scientific skills, they ended up with very different lives. He is the famous scientist, and she has disappeared. Girls are expected to be sweet, good-looking, obedient, manageable, not assertive, good listeners, clear, not self-focused. And in terms of what to do, they're not really encouraged to pursue a technological career. Family should be the first priority. They are encouraged to choose a job that leaves time for the family. And well, career and ambition are bad words for girls. They're not really, they're not encouraged to use these words for themselves. It is not sexy. And in the last years, fortunately, scientific journals have published studies that show that there are differences in the way women and men are treated in the professional world. It is not true that merit is the only thing that matters. It has been proved that when there are candidates that are men and candidates that are women with the same CV, with the same background, men are preferred. And when a woman is chosen, her salary is lower. And so in general, it is much more difficult for men to get a job and to get a good job with the right salary. So this was known, but nowadays there are scientific studies that prove this. And also when women have entered the workforce, they receive less good letters than men, are treated in a less professional way. Their title is not used. They are rewarded less for their performance. They are penalized in negotiations. So it is difficult for them to enter into the workforce and in a good way. And it is difficult for them to achieve results when they're in. Often I heard that women are not interested in leadership roles. And again, a study shows that women are less likely to make themselves available for leadership roles because they know that in male-dominated environment, they will receive less support. And they're less likely to be voted because of this reason. So they sort of avoid to be defeated, not making themselves available. Please, Christy. And we see still many firsts around, many first rector, many first president, many first whatever. So we are still on the path towards equality, but we're not yet there. Please. IFORS. IFORS has, as I showed you, an administrative committee and a president. And the IFORS was founded in 1959. And only after 50 years of male presence, we had the first woman president, Elise de Rosario, in 2007, which is, quite a long time. 50 years is a long time. The good news is that after Elise, I'm the second woman president of IFORS. The next one in 2022 is Jenny Loing from Macau. So a third girl, a third woman president of IFORS, which is very good news. And hopefully in the future, we will see many more. So now I'm pleased to introduce our 4 speakers of today. And I would ask Rosiane to introduce our first speaker, Luciana.
Hi, or our community. It's with great pleasure that I participate in this webinar to discuss gender diversity around the world from the perspective of the multidisciplinary area of operational research. In Latin America, we have advanced in theme with some very strong actions and groups in computing and start with OR in recent years. We have many strong and active female research, and today I have the pleasure and the mission of introducing one of these Latin America scientific leaders in computing and operational research, Luciana Buriol, an active researcher, a reference, and a great friend of mine. So Luciana is a former professor of computer science at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. She is now a principal research scientist at the Amazon Seattle. She's also a former president of FALHO, the Latin America or our society, and she's a former vice president of IFORS. So Luciana, welcome. Thank you for accepting this invitation.
Thank you very nice for your kind introduction. So for today, I would like to share some data and information I collected from South America countries about the gender discussions and initiatives, and also my personal view of these issues in OR and also in STEM. So what I'm sharing here is really my personal view. So first of all, here in green, you can see the Ibero-American countries that are those countries that speak Spanish or Portuguese in America, and including Portugal and Spain in Europe. 11 of these countries constitute the ALHO, regional grouping of IFORS, that are Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, Spain, Mexico, Peru, Portugal, and Uruguay. So they constitute the Latin America Association of Operations Research. In these days, I contacted women representatives from South American countries and Mexico to collect some information to share here in these words. So first of all, ALHO, that was founded in 1982, had already 18 presidents, and 5 of them are women. So in ALHO, women are well represented. Let's say 36% were president, and always we have in the committee women and men. Even ALHO president, there were 5 women. There are some societies, OR societies in South America, that never had a women president still. Another thing about South America, and probably many other countries, is that the OR members, they belong to other scientific societies too. And especially in South America, I was investigating the initiatives and discussions in main conferences of OR that discuss gender issues. And I found out that a little is happening in OR, but a lot in computer science and in mathematics in different countries of ALHO. So I decided to share how it is in Brazil, that I found very similar to Argentina, Mexico, Chile, Uruguay, and other countries that I talked. And then I will share how it is in Brazil. So there are many initiatives regarding women in STEM areas, in the universities, in the industry, in high schools, in the society in general. These are being discussed a lot, and I have the impression that is growing recently. In computer science, for example, in the main national conference, there is this event called the Women in Information Technology that happens for 15 years already, since 2007. It is split, for example, in 2020, there were 12 hours split in 3 days, where there were main speakers and work presentations regarding different initiatives at the university, society, high schools, and also some spaces for discussions and some spaces for students' discussions too. In the mathematics, there is an event. So there is a 2 hours event inside the main national conference that started in 2019. And it is a talk plus some discussions. In OR, we started in 2019 having an event of 2 hours inside the main national conference as BPO, that it was a talk plus discussions. And from what I heard from the other ALU countries, is the only, Brazil is the only country that is hosting this event inside the main OR conference. This is a picture from 2019, where we had a presential meeting, and here is a picture from 2020 that was virtual. Grazia was our main speaker, and this picture just captured a few of the participants. There were many more. It's just capture a few. To bring some numbers, I was trying to condense some numbers from different places, but this is difficult. So I decided to extract the numbers from my university. These are the current numbers of the number of women in different under courses in the undergrad courses in the undergraduate studies in my university. My university is Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. In fact, I just left the university, but I had been working here for 15 years. There are 40,000 students in the university, more or less half of them are women. And in computer science, we have only 12% of women. In mathematics, 36, industrial engineering, 34, electrical engineering, 13, mechanical engineering, 9%. So in computer science, where I work, we observed that in the post-graduation program, there are a little bit more women. It's about 15%. And if we see the numbers from 2002 until 2018, we had 10% of women in computer science. So we increased 2%. So as a general view, what I observe is that women are underrepresented in STEM courses, and this is obvious. And the students complained of many gender issues in the universities, complaints about colleagues, professors, and other issues. There are many still, unfortunately. In the industry, women are naturally underrepresented. If there are not many women leaving the under courses from the universities, so this is natural. But the main complaint is we do the same thing, but the job title and the salary are different. And this is across countries, across cultures, I would say. Years ago, I started participating of a group of women of technology in Porto Alegre. So most of them are from the industry. There are a few academics, including me, and we discuss many topics there. And for far, this is one that is discussed. And once I started participating of this group, I pay more attention to that. Also from other groups of women from other countries, I read about, and I would say this is quite a general complaint. So what can we do? Why should we do something about that? And I would say, hope you have reasons. I have many reasons to do something about that. I just choose 4 to discuss briefly here. So there are good jobs in the STEM area, in the technology area, and I hope women take these jobs. The working environment, when there is diversity, is so much better. And when I'm talking with different aspects of diversity, not only about the gender diversity. And women can do the job just as well as men. They still can be feminine, they still can have kids, and hope less and less barriers will have, but they can do this job. And it's good for the area. Women are about 50% of the population. If we are not attracting these women, they are dedicating their effort to other areas. So I would say each one of us have at least this reason to incentivize those girls who are gifted to this area to continue in this area in her life. I'm not telling about convincing women that are from other areas to move here, but attracted those one that like this area, and somehow in a point of life they change idea and move to another area. So my final message is that we can do many things to change that. For example, being an example of equality at home. It's the first step, it's education. Parents and teachers, they are the role model for kids, for child. If a kids and child grow, seeing the example at home, they will be educated for that. Encourage girls in math and science, and this can be done in so many different ways. In the messages we give, in the activities we enroll them, in the toys that we buy to them, the gifts we give in a birthday party. There are so many ways to incentivize girls, even in the clothes they can use. So we can do more here. Hire and pay equality. So this is quite common that in the technology industry we have a certain amount of women that is usually a small percentage in comparison to men. But when we go to higher level, this percentage is even smaller usually. So the idea is why it's the percentage does not maintain the same when we go to higher levels. If this doesn't happen, we have to discuss that. And this is something that women complain and say that happen a lot. And it's not only here, I think all over the world. So leaders must encourage diversity, equality, and inclusion. Leaders are the role model to all of us, to women and men, to young and more experienced ones across different cultures and countries. So their message, their words have extra power. So they have to express that. And if they do not do anything, do not say anything, this is also a message. And the role models are really important. So when we see a woman being recognized by her work, when we see a woman persisting to conquer her objectives, for fighting for her and others' freedom, or just sharing her ideas to an audience, they are role models. Other young women will see this and will think that they also can do that. So this is important. As final remarks, I would say that the main impact comes from early ages. However, these discussions and initiatives have to continue in all stages of life and places. We have a lot to evolve. If there are people thinking that there is equality at work and life, I would say we are not there. And we've already evolved a lot. I think it's important to know that because we are working there, we are going to the direction of equality, but things do not change from one day to the next, to 1 year to the next. Maybe it will take decades, but we have to continue discussing that and doing initiatives to have this change. And finally, being proactive is important. So to women, they have to be brave and participate, to express their ideas, to share their works, and to be willing to take a space that are from there. So this is my message for today. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Luciana. Great talk. And now it's the time of Suniti to introduce for IFORS our speaker.
Thank you, Grazia. Yes, it's a very pleasure to attend this IFORS global webinar with the important issue of gender diversity. As Grazia has already shared, the first woman president of IFORS is from Asia Pacific region. And yeah, that's very new. And there are still some women presidents in national societies, like it was in Nepal, and then Malaysia, Philippines, there are still women presidents in the national OR societies. And the women grouping has started in China, Operation Research. And then in New Zealand also they have started to form a group of women. And I hope it will be expanding all over the region slowly. It will take. Yeah. So today we have Professor Guiying Yan from China presenting her experience and her roles of women in OR. Professor Guiying Yan is Professor of Academy of Mathematics and System Science, Academy of Sciences, CAS. She received her doctoral degree from Shandong University. Her main research interest is graph theory and its applications. She is Vice President of National Center for Mathematics and Interdisciplinary Sciences, CAS, and Secretary General of Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics, CSIAM. She is also Deputy Representative of Standing Committee for Gender and Equity Science. In 2021, Operation Research Society of China established a Committee on Women in Operation Research under her suggestion, and now she is in charge of the related affairs. Now, SCGS established in September 2020 by a number of international organizations after they finished the global project. You can see this in the link given below. So, because Guiying Yan has started the grouping of women in OR in China, now she's presenting her experience in this presentation in our global webinar. So, Guiying.
Thank Professor Suniti, and my pleasure in here to give a talk. The topic of my presentation is making operations research more attractive to women. Firstly, here is my the outline of my talk. I will discuss this topic with you from several aspects. Firstly, technically speaking, I think it is the first stage for females to realize the importance of the subjects of OR. When more and more women become aware of, familiar with, and interested in operations research as well as its applications, I believe that gender equality will be improved. So how can we make the subject more accessible to some people? My suggestion includes, but are not limited to, introducing the basic concepts, techniques of operations research, its development history, and the increasingly widespread applications in various fields with the current technological development. Through such as websites, conferences, and short courses, and so on. Operations research, briefly speaking, in one word, optimization. In one sentence, is about making the best of things with within certain constraints. Therefore, I believe that operations research is a subject that easily appeals to the common people, and I think we should pay efforts for it. Secondly, speaking and at an organizational and a policy level, we propose the following initiatives. First, to establish special gender equality or organizations at all levels. For example, IMU established its committee for women in mathematics, which concerned with issues related to women in mathematics worldwide. They play an important role for women in math. Generally, special organization can highlight the important role of women, suggest the preferential policies for women, and emphasize the proportion of women on various committees. For example, China National Natural Science Foundation has given priority to women. Youth Foundation raises maximum age limit for women from 35 to 40. To establish special funds and projects for women. For example, a startup research fund for newly employed women to help them enter the research field as soon as possible and find their own goals and directions. A youth fund for young people, special academic conference program for supporting postnatal women to help them through their difficult times. Otherwise, they are likely forced to leave their researches and so on. Of course, long-term support research fund and academic exchange programs are necessary. Three, I think we should to promote all kinds of academic activities, such as regular academic activities for female scientists. Of course, male scientists are also warmly welcome to participate. Special forums such as Her Power to help young women solve their confusion. Short courses for girls to introduce operations application in life, as well as the invitation of women scientists to enter enterprise and campuses for popularizing operations research. It is obvious that women are often perceived as needing help. However, many excellent women scientists can help the others. Of course, there are still some questions for me to look for the answers here, as well insights and questions. Firstly, we should encourage females to be motivated, confident, and self-empowered when they are very young. I agree with Luciana just now. I completely agree with her side. Main impact comes from early age, and encourage female researchers never give up, even if in their most difficult times. We need to call for the support and assistance of the whole society, including government departments. We need to call for the indispensable role of men in gender equality, and we need to take practical action to address the concerns and difficulties of women in research. For example, we should provide child care during the conference to alleviate their worries about attending. Also, I do have a great number of questions about how to organize some relevant activities. For example, how to organize more effective academic communication, including science popularization based on the characteristics of the operations research. As you know, the women's research community is not very large, and the research directions are rather fragmented. If the topic is too thematic, the number of participants will be small. If they are organized together, the efficiency will be greatly reduced since they are not familiar with each other. Therefore, how to attract more people to the conference is also a big problem. However, some males assume that women's conference is not relevant to them. In fact, we need more men to attend. In addition, the organization of the conference, the content, the positioning, the choice of presentations are worth exploring. We also recommend that international and regional exchanges of women's work, both academic and non-academic, should be strengthened. The experiences of successful women be shared and more widely publicized, and the training of young women be emphasized, and that sustained attention be paid to the scientific literacy of children, especially girls in remote areas from an early age. Finally, let me briefly introduce the Women's Working Committee of Operations Research Society of China. It was established in October of last year with the purpose of promoting women in OR. We have discussed a series of schedules for the future, inclusive of the rotation of the committee and future activities. For example, it is proposed that the operations research workshop for women will be held annually. From July 9 to 11, the first workshop will be held in Yantai and co-hosted by two societies, CSM and ORSC. The workshop will feature 4 invited talks from operations research, statistics, and computing, as well as a short course on introduction to blockchain, and a special presentation on Half of the Sky, the rise of women mathematics. And a forum aims to how to enhance academic competency for young women. We are looking forward to a successful conference and a great starting on female careers. Lastly, I would like to thank IFORS for the invitation and all organizers, and hope to strengthen communication and cooperation with the international and regional women's organizations for gender diversity. Wish the webinar a great success. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Guiying, for this very rich presentation. It's very good to see that in China there are so many activities to promote OR and women in OR. Thank you very much. So now it's the time of Euro, and I would invite Claudia Archetti to introduce Paula.
Thank you, Grazia. And let me first thank IFORS for organizing this great initiative, the webinar in general, and especially this one on gender issues and challenges. Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here, and mainly it's a pleasure to introduce the first speaker of today, Paula Carroll, who, I mean, yeah, I will also like to thank her for accepting the invitation of being a speaker in this important webinar, and for all the activities and the initiative that she is doing and she will present during her talk. So Paula is assistant lecturer in the School of Business in the University College in Dublin. She has a background in electrical engineering, and the research interests are mainly the application of operations research and business analytics to solve real-world problems, especially those related to climate change and mitigation actions. And something that I would like to stress more than all the other interesting, let's say, component or interesting factor that I was mentioning now is that she's founder and chair of the Euro Wisdom Forum, which has been recently established within the Euro community, where the goal is to promote, support, empower, and encourage the participation of all genders in operations research and management science. This is a great initiative, which already had some, let's say, some outcomes, and I hope Paula will describe us what they are doing and what are the great things that are coming out resulting from their initiative. So thanks again, Paula, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Claudia. So hopefully you can all hear and see. I really enjoyed all the presentations so far. So thank you for the invitation to present. Now my computer has frozen. No, there we are back again. So I really enjoyed the presentations, and I think some of the themes are going to echo right throughout all of the presentations. So I love Luciana's point about education being part of the key and leaders being role models. So women and men as role models are fantastic. And Guiying's points there, I loved that comment about half the sky. So that's a really, really lovely piece. Great to see all of those initiatives. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about the Euro Wisdom Forum. So Claudia didn't mention that she's one of the advisors to the Wisdom Forum. So thank you to her for her contribution and her support so far. So this actually arose from the Euro 2018 conference in Valencia in Spain, where some of the women there did a session on women in science. We followed up Euro 2019 in Dublin with women in OR, and arising from that, with the support of the Euro Executive Committee, we established the Euro Wisdom Forum. So WISDOM actually stands for Women in Society Doing Operations Research and Management Science, but we like that idea of wisdom, it being attractive to all genders. So we don't particularly want to say these are women's issues, because these are issues that face all of society, and Luciana there noted some of the benefits to all of society when we address some of these concerns. So let's talk a little bit about WISDOM. Claudia flagged to you there what WISDOM aims to do. So what we did in February 2020, which was just at the start of the pandemic, was that we issued a call to all of the Euro national societies to nominate somebody who would like to work with us on establishing a forum, which we then decided was the Wisdom Forum. We set about deciding what our aims and objectives were and how we were going to try and achieve something concrete. So these are what we decided we would focus on. So I know some women's organizations focus on networking. We decided we also wanted to focus on doing some research as well. So these are our aims. We wanted to be able to advise the OR community within Europe in particular, what the best practices should be. We wanted to do some networking and championing of younger career stage women in particular. And we wanted to raise awareness and promote a conversation about how OR can be utilized to help create a diverse, inclusive future. So that was where we started from, just in February 2020. So we're a relatively young organization. As Claudia mentioned, we've had some progress so far. So we started with a white paper, which I'll talk about in 2 seconds, but that has led on to the Euro Executive adopting an EDI, an Equality, Diversity, Inclusive policy. So that's up there on the Euro website. So that's a big achievement. It's a very progressive step at that level for Euro to be advocating that we need to set down some of the words that express what it is we want to do and how we might actually achieve that. So that was what we set out to try and do. We're a group of about 20 women working on this together. We broke out our working groups, if you like, into a set of events, so organizing activities and some research. With two main strands ongoing. So I'll just explain a little bit about what we're doing in the events. So one of our initiatives is what we call Young Women for OR. So we launched a call last year for young women active in the area of OR to nominate themselves. And we selected 12 of them to try and help them raise visibility of their work and raise their profile. And we've successfully done that for some of these young women. We think that's important. We've also been organizing a set of webinars. So you can see the webinars that are listed here, and they were all recorded and they're all available up on the Euro website. So in reverse order, we've been getting the young women for OR to participate in these webinars, and we usually have an expert speaker from the area, a senior researcher contributing to the webinars. We also had a leadership webinar, so Grazia very kindly spoke at that for us last December with Manuel Bonds, then president of Euro. We have other bits and pieces of events that are work in progress. So we're trying to decide, rather than doing a formal mentoring scheme, because we do think that people's own institutions are responsible for some of those activities, that maybe what we need is something like a buddy scheme. So Guiying mentioned there in her work about postnatal support. So women returning from maternity leave, there is a bit of a gap about how to get back in. So something like a buddy scheme, a lightweight connection, that might be more useful than a formal mentoring scheme. We're also working on a workshop that we hope we'll be able to hold in person later in this year, with our fingers crossed here that COVID will allow us to actually meet up and do some work together. So the Euro executive have been incredibly supportive in facilitating us to do all of this. They've given us a small budget to run that workshop, for example. And these are our young women for OR in 2020. Or is that 2021? Apologies, the years are muddled. This is 2021. So there are a list of our 12 awardees this year. So some of them have already delivered their webinars. We also have an opportunity at the upcoming Euro conference. We have a set of sessions where the young women again will present their work. So there are awardees. They're the events, they're the main events that we're running at the moment. On the research strand of what we're trying to do, we took a step back at the beginning and we tried to figure out how are we actually going to achieve progress, because as Luciana mentioned there, these issues are long-standing. So, you know, these issues are around for a long time. So we're not naive that we expect we can jump in and have a quick fix. We understand that these are complex societal issues, but what we wanted to know is, where do we fit in OR? So what can we do within the OR community to make it a more welcoming place for women? But also, how can we use OR as a tool for broader society to promote gender equality? So our white paper is again available through the Euro website. That's been endorsed now by the Euro Executive Committee, and I understand has been fed through to IFORS for consideration. One of the things within the white paper is that we set out some recommendations, and I've just picked two of the recommendations here. There are 10 in total, but two that we thought would be useful in terms of achieving concrete progress. And it was to ask each Euro instrument, so the national societies, the working groups, for each of them to individually think about what kinds of targets they could create for equality, diversity, and inclusion. And we do recognize that many of these organizations are partly voluntary. So we do these as part of our contribution in our academic lives. So there aren't always a huge amount of resources for these organizations, but we do think it's important that at that level, people start thinking about setting EDI targets. We also took on a recommendation, or we set a recommendation that we would gather data to model the OR network of actors. And what I mean by that is to look at the OR community and see who is doing what. Because one of the things we often hear is that maybe we should set quotas. If we're making recommendations for EDI policies, should we set concrete targets? But we don't actually know how many women are active within OR. So we had some lovely statistics earlier on of the percentage of women that are studying electrical engineering, for example, but we don't quite know how many women we have, and within the sub-disciplines of OR, who's actually active. So we're working on that, trying to gather some data, create some models, do some analysis so that we know at least where we're starting from. So that's one of our recommendations that we're acting on. The other piece of research that we're working on is that we decided we would do some surveys, again, to try and get the baseline of understanding where we're at the moment. And we want to do some interviews as well. So we've gone through the process of designing those surveys, getting our ethical approval. We're within Europe, so we have to comply with all of these GDPR, the personal data privacy laws and regulations. So we have our ethics approval, we've designed a survey, we've piloted it, and we're ready to go. So we're going to launch that during the Euro conference. We've also designed our interviews. Again, we've piloted those, and we will be looking for people to conduct those qualitative interviews with. So we have people that are qualified in performing those techniques are going to do the interviews. Other things that are work in progress, as I said, gathering that data to model the network of OR actors. We're specifically starting by looking at co-authorship networks. So again, it's very, very broad, but we thought we would be able to get some data from some of the, either the publishers or from the websites. And I just want to share with you some very, very preliminary results. So this is looking at the EJOR journal. So this is the European Journal of Operations Research, which is many of you are very familiar with and have published in. We've done some data scraping to pull out the papers from 2010 to 2020. So the person leading on this is Rosa Figueiredo in the University of Nice with an assistant, a student, Thibault, is helping her. So we've pulled the data of all of the authors for 10 years. And what we were interested in establishing is what is the gender mix of the authors. So these are very, very preliminary results. And what we can see, and again, we have to estimate sometimes the gender of the author. So some names are very easy. So Paula in Europe is readily identifiable as a female name, but we're not so good at some of the international names at trying to identify the gender of those authors. So we're using some natural language processing to estimate the gender of the authors. And what we can see in this graph from EJOR for the 10 years is that there is a high proportion of the papers are published by all male consortia, if you want to call it that. So groups of men publishing together. And the green line here is the groups of women. So these are papers that are published just by female authors. And the blue line here is the set of papers that seem to have a mix of male and female authors. And what we found interesting was that the green line, the all female, is above the blue line. We would have thought we would have got more mixing. Also, just to mention that the blue line there, where there seem to be mixes of men and women, the women don't seem to be listed as the lead or senior author. They tend to be in the middle, so they're not the first author on the paper. And just over on the right-hand side, we've just picked out, because I know we might have some Italian people here with interest in this. This breakdown here is just showing us over the years the number of male and female authors that are in the published EJOR papers. So again, they're very, very preliminary results. We're still gathering the data. We're still trying to do our modeling piece. But what we're going to try and do is try and establish some kind of knowledge base about co-authorship networks, because we think it's important that young women at the early stages of their careers understand those authorship networks and get connected in. So that's what we've been doing. This is what we're going to be doing in the next while. So coming up in July is the Euro 2021 conference. It's in Athens, but it's hybrid, so most of us will be connecting in remotely. We have two sets of sessions at that, one on networking and career progression. So again, it's important to understand how to connect in. We also have the Young Women for OR. Each of them will have an opportunity to present their work again. We'll also then be having another webinar next September, so you can hold that date. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the young women then. And as I said, we hope to hold a workshop in the autumn. Lastly, just to mention, we're absolutely reaching out to the international community. So if anybody's interested in learning more, that's our link there for the website. We're also on LinkedIn, and there's an email address if anybody would like to contact us. So I think I'll stop there and I'll hand over. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to IFORS for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Paula, for the presentation and for your action within Europe. And please, Carla, can you introduce our last speaker?
Yes, first of all, welcome everyone. I'm very happy to participate in this very important activity. I remember being at the first meeting in 1995 of the US organization called Women in ORMS. It consisted of about 15 women having a brown bag lunch and thinking about how to advance women in their careers in OR. And I'll let Olga say all of the exciting things that have happened since then. But before that, I just want to give a shout out to the IFORS is an organization that was emerging of ORSA and TIMS. And for all of the time that those two organizations were separate, there was a single person, single female who was president, and she is Judy Liebman. She was president of ORSA. Now, if you take a look at what has happened since that merging of these two organizations, there are many female leaders, and that's really great to see. Judy was my mentor, and so I just wanted to highlight how important mentoring is. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Olga. She is the current president of Women in OR and is an associate professor of management science at the Darla Moore School of Business at the University of South Carolina. She received her PhD from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and before joining the Darla Moore School of Business, she was on the faculty of the Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. Her research focuses on retail operations, supply chain management, and the interface between marketing and operations. Her research has appeared in many top journals, and she is actively involved in multiple professional organizations, including IFORS, the management, MSOM, management and service operations management, POM societies, has been organizing many conference sessions, and is an associate editor of Decision Science Journal. Not only does she serve as president of the Women in OR, but she's also president of the Management Science Forum, she is secretary of the Production and Operations Management Science Board. It is my pleasure to introduce Olga. Olga, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carla, for the very kind introduction. And I would like to thank Grazia as well for the invitation to be part of this webinar. It has been such a great event so far, so many interesting presentations, and I got to learn so much about the different types of initiatives that are actually taking place around the world. So I was asked to talk about diversity in the operations research and management science community. So first I would like to share some data in order to provide more evidence of the gender gap that we have in this community. And then I will briefly talk about some initiatives that are actually taking place. So even though women have made a lot of progress in the field of operations research and management science, and the representation, the level of the representation of women in the field has dramatically increased since the 70s, still men and women don't enjoy equal representation. So based on data that I collected, that actually obtained from from two professional societies, that is both IFORS as well as MSOM, women approximately represent 20% of the membership. So I wanted to share with you a bit of a more detailed breakdown. So this is the data that I got from IFORS for their regular members, that you can see actually here the gender breakdown. And you notice that since 2016, the proportion of female relative to male has remained pretty much stable. It has increased by 2% from 2016, but we are not there yet. When it comes to the gender breakdown for the student members, We see a little bit of a more promising trend as the ratio of female to male for the student members is a bit higher than the corresponding ratio for the regular members. But keep in mind that the data here is, the quality of the data here is not that great, as less than 50% of the students actually completed the survey. So how about the diversity in journal editorial positions? So Margaret Brando, who is a professor at Stanford University, she worked on a project together with a student serving as 2020 diversity, equity, and inclusion ambassadors through IFORS. So what they ended up doing, they analyzed the diversity in editorial boards across 16 IFORS journals. And what they actually found was that women comprise just under 20% of editorial board members. And by editorial board positions, they looked at editor-in-chiefs, they looked at department editors, and they looked at associate editors / senior editors. And this trend is also very consistent to what the AACSP has been reporting, which is actually one of the oldest and the most well-known accreditation body for business schools worldwide. And they found through the data that their school partners are sharing with them that one of the disciplines in business schools with the lowest reported percentages of female faculty is actually operations research. So definitely a lot of progress has been made, but we're still not there yet, unfortunately. So what are the different types of initiatives that are out there to create awareness about gender inequality and try to promote more diversity in the workplace in the ORMS community? So I will talk about one of the initiatives and then briefly mention two other initiatives that are going on through, again, IFORS and EMSON. So the first initiative that started, as Carla mentioned, back in 1995, and we have several of the founding members with us today, which is extremely exciting, is the Women in Operations Research Management Science Forum that started in 1995, exactly the same year that actually IFORS was established through the merging of the other societies. So for those of you who may not necessarily be very familiar with a forum, one of the goals of the forums is obviously to encourage interest in the field of operations research and management science, to create a platform where individuals that are having interest in the issues that women are facing in relationship to their profession can get together and interact, with obviously the ultimate objective to advise the board on the issues that women are facing in the profession. But of course, since those conversations cannot be one-sided, we also need to make sure that we can mobilize men to become supporters, to become advocates, and to become allies of women. So this is also extremely important. Another important goal of WORMS is to encourage networking opportunities between their members so that they can increase connections as well as professional relationships. And also to take time to celebrate the members' achievements, to share their success stories, so that those success stories can become inspirational stories for others to follow. Okay? So WORMS has been extremely active in two major IFORS events, and that is the Business Analytics Conference that typically takes place sometime in April, and the IFORS annual meeting that usually is either in October or November. And it organizes a different variety of events. So we have what we call as the more like the networking type of events, such as the networking breakfast and the WORMS luncheon, networking reception. We have some events that have more of an educational purpose, such as different types of sessions, panels, and workshops that we're organizing in both conferences. We have a mentoring program taking place called Coffee with a Mentor, where women who would like to receive mentorship can actually sign up. And we also have faculty members or senior professionals who would like to become mentors. And we're doing the matching, we're communicating this matching to the individual involved, and then we let it go on from there. So we don't follow up. We pretty much do the matching based on the data that we have, And then we communicate that information to them, and then we leave it up to them how often they would like actually to continue that relationship. And actually, this past year, it was my very first time as well to be involved in this specific program and become a mentor of a junior faculty. So unfortunately, several of our in-person events that have become so popular in both meetings, we couldn't do them because of the pandemic. And we're hoping that some of those events will take place either in this upcoming annual meeting or in the next business analytics conference. But during the pandemic, we also started some webinar series featuring work of women, both in academia as well as in industry, and we will try to alternate. We had some socials taking place as well. And starting from the end of the summer, basically beginning of fall, we're going to be partnering with the practice session of IFORS, and we're going to be featuring work of women, both from academia and industry, that are doing some practical and relevant work. So stay tuned. We're going to be actually communicating that information through Connect. If you're not already a member of WORMS and you got excited with all that I shared with you, it is very easy to become one. This is basically a screenshot of our membership page. There are different ways to become members. We have a step-by-step guide that you can follow. Or if you want, you could simply, when you're renewing your annual IFORS membership, you can simply check the forum for women in operations management under forum. Our membership fees are very reasonable, and we're using obviously those fees to be able to sponsor the different types of events that we're organizing in both conferences. So now I would like to talk about some other initiatives, again, through professional societies, the IFORS and the EMSOM, which are working towards, again, promoting a more diverse and more equitable and more inclusive community, where diversity here is a bit broader. So they definitely focus on gender diversity, but they're also looking at racial diversity, diversity in ethnicity, as well as diversity in sexual orientation as well. So both societies have formed what they call as the diversity, equity, and inclusion committees. So IFORS have already started having some webinars on those type of themes. They have some events coming up at the IFORS annual meeting. They had also some events in their in last year's virtual annual meeting as well. And they have established what they call as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ambassadors Program. What that program is about, it brings together individuals from different levels. It could be professors, for instance, with students and staff, to work on a project to promote a more diverse and more equitable and more inclusive society. EMSOM has its own committee as well, and they're conducting annual surveys of harassment as well as inclusion to their membership. They're sharing their results with the EMSOM business meeting every year. They have done it over the past 2 years. And then they're trying to take those findings in order to understand what kind of actions can be taken in order to prevent harassment issues and problems and create a more inclusive society. So I will stop here, and thank you so much again for giving me the opportunity to be part of this very interesting webinar.
Thank you very much, Olga, for your presentation. Very interesting and very rich in terms of numbers, information. And it is good to know that there are already organizations in some parts of the world that are promoting gender equality, and this is certainly very, very important. And I hope the webinar of today will promote more actions around the world, maybe inspired by the examples that you, our speakers today, have shown to our community. So thanks to all of you. And well, there are many comments and questions in the chat that have been partially answered by some of our speakers. So I would like to thank all the participants for those questions. And I would like now to invite our hosts, Rosiane, Suniti, Claudia, Carla, if we have time, to ask a question to our speakers. So maybe Rosiane, you can start first if you want to ask a question.
Yes, for Luciana, Alio, Brazil. We met at Tuneleville, Late America School of Operations Research, didn't we? So how was this your participation in a scientific school with colleagues from all over Latin America and from other countries around the world at the beginning of your career and the future impacts?
Hi, Rosiane. Yes, I love you. It's a very nice school, OR school for masters and PhD students. I participate in 1999 in this school that we first met. And for example, these schools, they try to select a given number of women too. And that was very important to have connections, and these connections I have until nowadays to the other students that were there, that later became academics and they are working in the industry, and we keep these connections. So that was a very nice opportunity to be connected to students from other countries in South America too. So that was very nice. I think that's it.
Great.
Thank you, Rosiana, for the question, and Luciana for the answer. Suniti, are you going to ask a question to one of the speakers?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Olga. First of all, one of my observation, I think everybody might have observed that this is our 6th webinar, and all the 5 webinars we had participants more than 100, and today we don't have even 90 participants. I don't know the reason, whether it is because of the women. Anyway, Olga, it was really interesting to know that you have done so many activities for women in OR and management science. My one question is that have you estimated, I have seen your data also up to 2020, have you estimated up to after 5 years, how many women could be motivated for this women in operation research and management science in terms of number? Because you have all the time series data, so maybe you have any estimation of that. And one more question I want to ask from the chat box, it was very interesting, that came to my mind also, that somebody asked about the quota. The women are hired due to quota, and in our South Asian countries, we call this reservation. Do you think that this reservation for women or quota for women is acceptable to us in this 21st century? So these are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Suniti, for the very interesting question. So with regards to the quota, I believe there are some advantages of having quotas, but also there is some risk. So the advantages obviously are, if we were to look at data of, with the proportion of women in leadership type of positions, right? And not only in industry, but also in academia as well. We have a very, very low representation. So obviously by imposing some type of quotas across different ranks and, throughout the hierarchy of an organization, it does ensure that at least women have some access in those type of positions. The issue though is that for those who do have this bias that women are not as capable as men, and they may use those type of quotas as a way to justify why women were actually selected for those type of positions, disregarding their experience, disregarding the values that they can bring to the table, disregarding their skills, all sorts of qualifications. So I think quotas are important, but probably we need to figure out a better way to to sort of like promote or explain why quotas are important, so that we don't provide that opportunity to people who have that bias to use quotas as some kind of a justification for hiring purposes or for advancement purposes for women. And to be honest, I don't know what the right way would be to do that. Definitely requires a lot of thinking. But that's my answer as far as quotas are concerned. Now, in terms of the membership, unfortunately, I did have some data, and I should probably have looked at our membership before jumping into the webinar today. But our membership has been increasing over the past few years. I think the last time that I looked at the numbers, we are roughly around 300 women in operations research and management science as members. And there was a slight drop due to the pandemic because usually a lot of women become members of our forum when they are actually renewing their membership. And due to the fact that the last IFORS conference was virtual, a lot of people didn't attend the conference. That also led to our membership dropping down. But we're trying really hard to increase our to make our forum a bit, more popular, and definitely the different types of networking parties that we had, receptions during the annual conference, which were very, very popular, created a lot of interest, and a lot of actually women joined the forum as well. We have also men part of the forum, not only women, which is great. So I'm hoping that within the next 4 to 5 years or so, we will be able to reach around 400 to 500, but it might be a very optimistic estimate. So,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This quota theme is really very controversial, and it's very interesting to hear your opinion, Olga. Claudia, are you willing to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have a question for Paula. What is for you the main actions? What do you see as being the main action that should be taken for now, within wisdom, or more broadly speaking, for facing the gender gap? So, I mean, you mentioned the ADI policy, the white paper, but by now, in terms of action, what would you do first?
Paula, we cannot hear you. Paula? We lost Paula. Maybe we could move on. Carla, if you wish to ask a question, and maybe we will get back to Paula if she will come back to us.
Okay, I actually wanted to ask a question to Paula, but I'll ask it to anybody of the group. There was interesting data that, from what I could get from all of the discussion, is we are seeing improvements in important leadership roles in academia and industry, and especially in the OR societies. The publication numbers are especially troubling to me because this relates certainly to academic advancement. And my question is, does anybody have any ideas about how to improve the publication success for women? And I think that it could be anybody, that any of the pictures of all the people who are participating in this, anybody have any ideas about that? Because I think it's extraordinarily important.
Maybe I can start answering and then it can be complemented. I can see there are many women academics that they are great, but sometimes they are shy to sharing their work. And I think this empowering women helps that, incentivizing them to show, to speak about their work, to participate in activities. This would help. And another thing I can see, and I felt, maternity affects a lot women. So if this period of having babies affect a lot work, and for this phase I would expect a lot of a comprehension of colleagues and also from house. So I always say that house education, early education affected this a lot. If a couple shares these activities in raising kids, so women also will have more energy to publish, to write down their work, to do their work. So by now is what I have in mind.
Thank you very much. Paula is not back, I'm afraid. I don't see her connected. Guiying, yeah, yes, Rosanna.
I have a question to Guiying
Yes.
from Asia. So what skill do you have that you think was the most determinant for your international career success? What skill?
What's what?
Have? Skill.
What skill? What skill?
Skill, ability. Which ability do you have? Which kind of skill, professional skill do you have?
I think we need
that you think that was the most determinant for your international career success.
I think you should be an expert in some research field and need well communication skill and other ability. For example, you should have your own ideas and your own opinions about some communication, and you should be an expert in some field. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question, for the answer. I think we have reached sort of the time limit that we had for this webinar. And I would like to close this webinar by thanking, first of all, our speakers today, our hosts, and also all the participants. I hope this is part of a more global set of actions that we all can take. I would certainly support what was said today, that we also need men to be part of this process. We cannot do everything ourselves. We do our part, we are here to do it, but we need men to be involved as well, because they need to change their mindset, and we have to have them as allies, as Olga said earlier. So thank you very much again to all of you, and I hope to see you again in other events around the world, especially I hope to see more women empowered. Thank you very much.